It's a pleasure for AFRAA to be at the BARSA Summit 2026 here in Durban. AFRAA and BARSA work closely together on matters to do with advocacy. AFRAA being a continent-wide association for airlines and BARSA representing the voice of airlines operating to South Africa. There is indeed areas of collaboration where we have to join our voices for collective bargaining, collective advocacy for our member airlines. Last week we had a milestone workshop with African Development Bank. So AFRAA and AFDB in Nairobi staged a two-day workshop for capacity building for airlines on the Integrated Aviation Transformation Program by AFDB. And that important workshop brought together African Airlines and various stakeholders to discuss how we can in Africa make the African airline industry more attractive for investment. How can we address the challenges that are making African airlines to be perceived as high risk and thereby unblocking those challenges. The subjects we discussed are such as capacity building gaps, policy in Africa and regulatory framework which is very fragmented. How can we address that? Matters to do with issues of blocked funds, how this is impacting airlines and maintenance, repair and overhaul for African airlines. So various challenges affecting the airlines. The African Development Bank subsequently made an important announcement that they will be putting in place $7 billion to support the airline industry. And we are very much committed to work with the AFDB. And at last week's workshop, we also had the unique opportunity to have the AFRAA Bank part of the discussions, because one of the items and key outcomes was the financing pool for airlines. And we have seen a lot of openness for collaboration between AFRAA Bank, AFDB, and we commend them for that major step. And from out of the actions that are coming from the announcement of AFDB, the support of this $7 billion will be going to support African airlines on matters to do with capacity development, on matters to do on availing finance for fleet acquisition. We note that we have a lot to do to make SAF available in Africa at competitive rates and to ensure that the supply chain is well in place so that African airlines can have access to SAFs within the continent. There was a lot of commitment we felt from the leadership at AFDB who are with us that this is indeed an action plan that you are setting in place, because it brings together policy, it brings together capital, and it brings together now that action that we can, the various stakeholders, drive forward to support the financing of African aviation. What last year's big achievement was on the free route airspace in Africa. We had trials starting from 2023 November all the way to 2025 May. And these trials, the main objective was to have pilot airlines to participate on the user-preferred routes for us to ascertain the safety of the free route airspace for the routes that were being put on the pilot phase and the operational ability of those routes. And indeed, following all those trials, the 6 airlines that participated, we had in the Northern African region, Egypt Air and Royal Air Maroc. In the Eastern region, we had Kenya Airways and Ethiopian Airlines. And in the Western and Central and also Eastern again, we had Sky and Rwanda Air. So these 6 airlines volunteered to be in the trials. And out of the trials, the data, 5,000 metric tons of fuel saved for 30 city pairs. So these 30 city pairs were operated by these 6 airlines. And in terms of the saving they made on carbon emissions, this is 16,000 metric tons savings. So you can see the savings are quite significant. And then in terms of time, because of using the user-preferred routes, total savings for these 30 city pairs was 1,400 hours. So to really get a picture of how much that time is, it's almost 2 months. African Airlines, based on these figures from the trials, could save about 50,000 metric tons on fuel just by using the user-preferred routes under the free route airspace in the Western and Central African region. So what we are doing after the major announcement we made last year, the Eastern And Southern African region is next on our radar to be made free route airspace. So we'll follow the same channels, the trials, the workshops, which we were supported by Afreximbank to make it possible. And then we would want to hope that by the end of the year, if all things go well, the Eastern and Southern African region can be free route airspace.